coup attempt that was foiled by the armed forces in Nigeria. We'll get you the very latest on this matter, plus hear from experts on what the implications are for the West Africa SADC region. Also staying in the region, specifically Nigeria, where oil exports are exceeding imports in the country for the very first time in a long history. Experts are asking that the African Continental Free Trade Area be leveraged to give a ripple effect of what's happening in Nigeria to the rest of the continent. How can that be achieved? We'll explore that shortly here on Connect Africa with me, Blessed Sogah. First, though, we give you a wrap of some of the major stories making the headlines across Africa.
6 people in Nigeria, including a retired major general and a 7 police inspector, have been charged with treason for attempting to overthrow President Bola Tinubu in a coup last year. The charges were filed by the Attorney General at the Federal High Court in the capital Abuja, where the defendants are due to appear before Justice Joyce Abdul-Malik on Wednesday. A 7th person, a former governor and one-time oil minister Timipre Silva, was also named, but the court documents said he was still at large. Rumors of the coup plot first surfaced in October 2025 when the government abruptly cancelled a planned military parade to mark Nigeria's 65th independence anniversary. At the time, officials cited security threats, but speculation quickly linked the cancellation to a possible coup plot. The military denied the suggestion, but in January it announced that 16 officers were to be tried before a military court for attempting to oust the president. It is unclear whether the charges filed in the Federal High Court, which also include terrorism and money laundering, are in addition to the military prosecutions. Silva, who served as Petroleum Minister from 2019 to 2023 under former President Muhammadu Buhari, and was also governor of the Southern Oil-rich Bayelsa State from 2007 to 2012, denied links to a coup plot after his house was ransacked by investigators last October. South Africa's police chief has been formally charged with failing in his duties to provide proper oversight in his role following a health contract that has become a subject of a criminal investigation. General Fanny Masemola, 62, was summoned to a court over his alleged part in the awarding of a controversial $21 million tender, which has since been cancelled. He has been charged with violating part of South Africa's Public Finance Management Act, which governs how public finances are managed. The case comes amid a national inquiry examining alleged widespread corruption involving police officers and politicians. Masemola told journalists after the hearing that he denied the charges. "I know that I'm not guilty. I'm not wrong, but the law must take its course," he said after his brief appearance at the Pretoria Magistrate Court. The court case relates to a tender awarded to controversial businessman Vusimuzi Kat Matlala's company Medicare 24 Tshwane districts in 2024, which was meant to provide health services to the police. More than 200 civilians held captive in the east of Democratic Republic of Congo by an armed group linked to the Islamic State have been rescued in an army operation, the military in neighboring Uganda has said. Ugandan soldiers working with their Congolese counterparts targeted a camp controlled by the Allied Democratic Forces ADF, a militant group that has its origins in Uganda. Children were among those freed, the youngest being a 14-year-old girl, according to a Ugandan statement. The ADF was originally formed in Uganda in the 1990s by people disgruntled by the government's treatment of Muslims. But after being routed by the army there, the remnants fled across the border. In 2021, Uganda and DR Congo launched a joint offensive to drive ADF out of their Congolese strongholds, but it has so far failed to put an end to the group's attacks. It is not clear when or where the rescued civilians were abducted, but the Ugandan army statement said that those who were being held described harsh conditions in captivity, including lack of food, forced labor, and punishment for disobedience. A As gang violence continues to plague Haiti, Chad is doing what it can to help. Chadian President Mahamat Idris Deby announced his country will send 1,500 troops to Haiti as part of the UN-backed security force. The state will contribute to this force with 2 battalions of 750 personnel each for a total of 1,500 men, Deby said. Deby stated that Chad frequently participated in international coalitions and peacekeeping endeavors, citing operations against the militant group Boko Haram. Launched 3 years ago, the Gang Suppression Force is a multinational security force that aims to help Haitian police tackle gangs. It replaced a previous multinational mission headed by Kenya and seeks to increase numbers to 5,500 security personnel. Haiti has been in the grips of gang violence for years, with the population facing killings, rapes, and kidnappings.
It's me, the one you poke, sip, and hopefully love. I'm your small reminder that growing up doesn't mean growing out of me. Trends come and go, but you still reach for me. I'm not just a drink, I'm that little sip that reminds you life can still be sweet. Calipo fruit juice drink, making sweet memories. This advert is FDA approved.
How may I help you today?
We'd like to open a bank account.
Sign here, sign here, sign here, and here. And now you draw direction to your house. I need your thumbprint. And I'll need your birth certificate too. No, I need the original.
A lot has changed since you banked like this. So have we. We've made it easier than ever to open an account online and bank on the go through our mobile app, online banking, and more. EcoBank, a better way to bank your way.
Sign here, and here.
EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank.
You guys are ready for what's about to happen? Only on JoyNews television.
All right.
Listen.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, my name is MC Kofi Darlington. Out here, my sister, the guy is quick. Giving the rappers the platform to show their flow. They go blow. Beats and bars to the hardest thing. You get past spit up, the baddest thing. This with the mic, make me see the fire. No darling, cause we know the tire.
Stage and that's it. Mike and I are ready. What a rap habit, so now you will rap. Beats and bars. You get bars, challenge.
Yo.
This is not just rap.
This is not just lyrics. This is raw on the mic. Yes, you're welcome to Beats and Bars, the ultimate community rap show, live on JoyNews television. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we bring rappers from your community to show us what they've got.
Two communities, two fearless MCs. I'm the guy, a square sister, stand the beat. Hey, guy, I'm doing this with my brother.
Yeah, you know when the queen is on, the king is on. My name is MC Kofi Darlington, the only MC with a sauce to spice it all up. And ladies and gentlemen, beat and bass, we say, you get bass, spit up. All right.
Rounds, freestyle, rep your community and brag. You know what I'm saying?
You heard that. You have just 3 rounds to prove yourself as a rapper. Every other Saturday, live on Joy Prime Television. Make sure you sit down, 8 p.m. Join us with some cool drink and enjoy the party, man. Your pong is smelling good. Boss.
You got bass,
Spit down.
And thanks for joining us. Let's talk about Nigeria, because in that country now, the Attorney General has charged 6 individuals for an attempted coup d'etat. That includes a former or one-time Minister for Petroleum, which is now sparking lots of debates in that country. In the next 24 hours, all these individuals will appear before court, except the one-time minister who's said to be at large. Now, security concerns are rife, not just within Nigeria, but within the entire sub-region, owing to the region becoming the highest point for the number of recorded cases of military overthrow of democratically elected governments. So what's the implication of the latest development in Nigeria for the sub-region and perhaps beyond for the entire African continent? Joining us now is Mukhtar Mouni Mukhtar, Executive Director at West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism. Thank you so much, sir, for spending time with us here on Connect Africa. Let's get to it. Nigeria last year denied that rumor that indeed there was an attempted coup. Now it's coming home. In fact, an official indictment of 6 individuals. What's your reading of what's happening in Africa's most populous country?
I mean, it's a surprise and at the same time, not anything extraordinary in terms of the potential that such elements or such incident could happen in Nigeria. Nigeria, it's not significantly in any way removed from the reality of the generality of the African, especially sub-Saharan Africa. If you look at the vulnerabilities and the factors that lead these countries to coup situations, Nigeria has more than adequate of that reality. And to the extent that you have military officers, security officers to the rank of Major General accused of leading a plot or being part of, masterminding a plot. It raises a lot of serious questions. Very often you would find very senior officers involved in coup situations because those are the elements who are often on the ground in touch with the reality, who are often frustrated with the reality on the ground and are able to undertake such situations. So if you look around, you would see that reality. And for Nigeria to have accused a Major General being part of this is worrying. We are only now learning of the details regarding the identities of the individuals involved. In fact, some of them are yet to be arrested. And we are hoping to learn more about the details surrounding this coup situation.
And the denial itself at first, what do you think motivated that?
Well, Nigeria, it's a very big country. It's a very complex country. And you have to be very deliberate in how you manage information, especially with the fact that, journalism and media management, information management has become very complicated because of social media and the multiplicity of actors in that space. And to the extent that, this is the single biggest threat to the stability of a nation, you would want to be very deliberate about it. And Nigeria's situation is not removed or different from many others within the sub-region. And in our own case, if you remember very well, not long ago, we had our own situation of alleged coup protests, not once, multiple times in this country in recent times. We have seen that. And, whilst we did not get successful prosecution regarding any of these recent ones, there's enough belief that this was something that was in the cooking. And so Nigeria, it's not removed from that reality. And the fact that they sought to deny this in the beginning, since last year, 2025, it only shows that this is something that they needed to be very deliberate about.
Nigeria is at the heart of ECOWAS, of course, given the fact that it's, supporting the regional framework by hosting the ECOWAS headquarters. Beyond that, it's, by far the biggest in terms of population. What could, a likely coup d'etat there do to the entire sub-region?
Well, that would be devastating. It would be, a huge blot, and it would be destabilizing and undermining and discrediting of ECOWAS and all regional efforts in terms of, efforts as regional stability this past half century, and all the gains and all the efforts that we had making would have been, would have come to naught. And I think that this should be the most dreaded situation for ECOWAS and anyone interested in security and regional stability. And I think that the Nigerian authorities are capable of managing the situation to ensure it does not get to that situation.
I see. The point about what's happening now, your own reading, is the atmosphere that fertile for that to happen in Nigeria, knowing that this is a country that will be heading to the polls soon?
It's hard to say to say no. And that is true for many other countries within the sub-region. And if you look at the trajectory and the reality of vulnerabilities such as, youth unemployment, the frustrations around inequality, issues of corruption, injustice, and all of this, put together can create that environment for coups to happen. And no nation within the space is exempted from that reality. And given that we have that history and that we have leaders in charge who are very conscious of that reality, they would be working hard to ensure that it does not happen. Even in our own country that has had, more than 4 decades with no coup situations, there is still that anxiety that we should be working to ensure that there's no possibility of such a situation happening. There's no country in this space that we can say it's insulated from coup situations, and we have to ever be watchful and prepared to prevent that from happening.
I see. Let's look at the entire sub-region. Togo now is expressing interest in bridging, for instance, what's happening in the Sahel. They already have a pre-existing situation of military coup d'etat. So if you're combining all of that, what do you suspect is happening across the sub-region? Is it a ripple effect of what's already happening in the Sahel?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Hello, can you hear me?
Mukhtar, I can hear you. I was just asking you if we're experiencing a case of a ripple effect across the sub-region. Mukhtar. We'll, of course, get in touch with Mukhtar Mukhtar, Executive Director for the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism, who was just sharing with us some of the points there as to the latest that we're hearing from Nigeria regarding some individuals who've been charged Wednesday. In the next 24 hours, we understand, is when, of course, some of them will appear before the federal courts in Abuja. We're waiting to see what the details will be with regard to this, because when the initial report came up, it was denied by the authorities. But, of course, as of now, the indication we're getting is that the Attorney General in the country now has decided to officially charge these individuals, and we will be getting you some more details as and when we have them. But Mukhtar is, I believe, back on with us. Mukhtar, if you can hear me, I was just asking the question earlier about what the ripple effect will be for the SAB region. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me now, Mukhtar. Okay. Well, we'll get back to that story for you in a while, but let's stay on Nigeria because the country itself, for the very first time, is making history, exceeding their exports of crude oil. Now refined petroleum is leaving Nigeria more than crude, and that's happening for the very first time in the country's history. All of this has been attributed to the Dangote Petroleum Refinery, a plant which is exporting more than 44,000 barrels of petrol. We'll give you more updates on that shortly, but we can now, I believe, get Mukhtar back on just to land on the point that you're raising earlier, Mukhtar, about what's happening in the country. I was just asking if that's a ripple effect across the entirety of the West Africa SAB region.
Well, I mean, I've said this many times. I mean, if you look at the current structure and nature of leadership within the sub-region, everything shows that we are clearly under siege. And we have seen the reality over the past 3-4 decades, the reality of dysfunctional state institutions and governance systems that have significantly failed to deliver what I call the entitlements of citizenship. And that reality forms the basis of the cracks and, the vulnerabilities that could always be exploited by non-state actors. And until we build enough adequate structures that can respond to the needs of the times and build sustainable structures for governance and development and prosperity, we would continue to fight challenges like this. And that could eventually undermine, the promise of democracy within the sub-region.
I get it.
I say this because if you look around within the continent, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, there is no single example of what a good democracy is supposed to be like. Not even in our own country, Ghana or Senegal, can serve as good examples of what good governance and democratic values can deliver to the people.
I'm just wondering why you're making such a controversial statement.
No, this is not controversial at all. If you have been monitoring and following events, if you go back, say, half a century ago, since 1975, in the last 50 years, everything has shown that we have failed significantly to deliver the promise of democracy. And that's why clearly anyone who is honest and following enough will tell you that democracy has significantly failed to deliver to the people. And that's why it appears unsustainable within the West African sub-region. Can you point to any single country that could serve that reality? Because we are very proud. Ghana is very proud. That's a good example in terms of how far we have come. For the last 40 years, we have seen a significant level of stability and some efforts at, governance structures, rule of law, press, freedom, civil society, active civil society, and all of that. But all of that are inadequate in terms of providing what I call the entitlements of citizenship. And that's why we go in circles every year, addressing the ever-increasing, expanding challenge of youth unemployment, issues of corruption, issues of injustice, and dysfunctional systems that have failed to deliver. Go across the country, you will see this reality, and it should worry everyone.
Is there an appetite now for the military across West Africa to just take over governance? Because that's what we seem to be seeing. The expectation that these military leaders in the Sahel will give up, for instance, power for a democratically elected government is not happening anytime soon. Do you feel that's what's building the appetite for many more persons in the military to want to take over?
If you read carefully, you would see that coup situations are not often determined or undertaken by military leaders. These are junior officers who are often, influenced by their own circumstances and vulnerabilities within the system. So no, there is no any reading or any sense that there's some sense of preparedness or willingness by military leaders to take over governance. The worrying situation is the capacity or the ability of the current governance systems to deliver to the people. That should be the single biggest source of threat to the people, to the government, rather than military leaders. We have to be paying attention to these governance issues.
The Nigerian president himself may, of course, be running again for presidency. Do you feel that all of these things are some of the factors for which these individuals may want to overthrow him?
The factors and the drivers of coups throughout, our history, many of them have been the same things: the issues of, corruption, the issues of, poor governance, issues of inequality and poverty. All of those have been part of our history. Since our post-colonial system, history is marked by that reality. And I didn't see, that much difference in terms of in Nigeria. And I am not unable to say that those are bases for coups to happen. We've seen situations where coups have happened on single base points. For example, you look at the case of Niger, you look at the case of Mali multiple times. It's about the insurgency and the terrorism, that have overtaken their country. And of course, other factors may have amplified the commitment or the resolve for coups to happen. But all over in West Africa, we have similar issues. And I'm not sure that will be different in any coup situation within the region.
I get it. Let's look at the regional overview and some of the interventions that have been happening, even from Ghana itself. Of course, the engagement went on, high-level West African engagement between the Sahel, West African leaders. Togo is also, making some efforts. What's your overview as to what the future looks like for these military governments? Are they likely to hand over anytime soon?
Well, we have seen, some movements or shifts in terms of the positions of some of the coup leaders within the continent. First of all, they were meant to rescue or designed to rescue the people from, the reality of devastating insecurity within their own countries. And the fact that this insecurity has not gone away. In fact, we've seen deteriorating situations in some of the countries, and we've seen the coup leaders move from just providing stability in the interim to, indicating long-term stay. And so I do not see any sense that these coup leaders would hand over to civilian-type leadership in the interim.
So where's ECOWAS in all of this? It looks like the focus on them has shifted dramatically. Okay.
Yes, sorry, I didn't get that.
Yeah. What's the focus on ECOWAS in all of this? It looks like the focus is shifting gradually away from the regional bloc.
Well, I think there's some increase in goodwill and goodwill demonstrated from both ends in terms of ECOWAS and the Sahelian states. But there has to be some converging points. There has to be, they may not necessarily abandon the alliance of Sahelian states, but there has to be some kind of mechanism that allows the alliance to be able to work with ECOWAS. And I've seen significant progress in that. And you saw that a week ago, in fact, days ago, they convened in Turkey. Seem to amplify that there's some sense of appetite for working together. And that should be in the greater interest of ECOWAS and the entire sub-region.
Okay, Mukhtar Musa, grateful for your time here on Connect Africa. Of course, we wait to see what the proceedings will be from tomorrow and expect some more updates here on Connect Africa. We stay within Nigeria. I was just talking about the history being made in that country, where, of course, it's now becoming a net exporter of refined petroleum products, reversing the country's pattern of exporting more crude oil. The latest milestone has been attributed to Nigerian businessman Aliko Dangote. His Dangote Petroleum Refinery is now exporting some 44,000 barrels of petroleum every day, happening within March alone, way above the country's imports, marking a surplus of around 3,000 barrels per day. Well, some experts have been asking African leaders to leverage the African Continental Free Trade Area as part of moves to give a wide-reaching effect of this development in Nigeria.
Indeed, it is a very pertinent issue, and what is happening with the Hormuz Strait blockage is just one the latest showing in a series of international events that led to global value chain disruptions. And as usual, it has led to an amplified shock onto the price of fuel and the price of transportation across the continent. Basically, just a few days ago, I wrote on my LinkedIn profile that today the Dangote Petroleum and Petrochemicals Refinery, which looked as an outsized bet, is now widely seen as a strategic buffer against global energy shocks. And indeed, we have said over and over again since the COVID pandemic that Africa needs to wake up on the importance of regional integration, to accelerate steps towards its integration, and to create the resilience and sustainability that is necessary to accelerate economic development and achieve the prosperity that we all want. So this is just the latest. And the issue with energy prices is that they cut across with regard to their impact. The impact on the price of transport, the impact on the cost of trade, the impact on production, manufacturing, energy generation, everything. And so this is one particular case where we have to consider the beneficial value of creating a regional integrated value chain around oil and gas in West Africa based on the Dangote refinery. And to think about where we stand at the moment with regard to the status of our regional free trade agreement, which is at the ECOWAS level, but also with the continental free trade agreement, that is the AFCFTA agreement. And so all I see with the Hormuz Strait is another shock, and I pray that our leaders will re-accelerate the implementation of the AFCFTA on national level, on regional level, and on continental level.
The Dangote story is quite an inspiration for the continent, isn't it? Here's one, conglomerate that was shut out of the international market, whether by intention or design, no one knows. And yet now the whole world is now coming to revolve around possibly this company that will be saving many of the African energy needs and that of Europe.
So when Alhaji Dangote thought that he wanted to place his biggest bet ever into the creation of an integrated oil refinery, he wasn't operating out of thin air. He's a businessman, a well-established businessman in Nigeria, quite an accomplished one on a continental level. As you know, he has recently been awarded as one of the Time 100 personalities of the year. And so he's a shrewd businessman, and he has seen the opportunity, because you see, in every challenge there is an opportunity. In the case of oil refinery in Nigeria, country of hundreds of millions of people who rely on energy on a daily basis for transport, for generation, for manufacturing, it's a no-brainer. It was just the huge size of that particular investment, and then the sheer powers which were pushing against because of the risk. Remember, Africa has always been perceived as a risky investment. And that in itself is a huge conversation we can have about whether it is a perceived risk or whether it is an actual risk. But all the same, Dangote decided to invest into this because not only it was important, because he saw an opportunity, and remember, it didn't come out of thin air. There was a series of global shocks, from COVID to Ukraine to Suez Canal blockage, and now recently to the Middle East crisis and the blockage of the Hormuz Straits. And so all of these, they just re-emphasize the importance of creating the kind of resilience that is needed. Dangote simply saw an opportunity, and he leveraged his resources, his network, his financial muscle, and he went for it several years ago. Today, this has started to pay off.
I want us now to dig into the African Continental Free Trade Area. I mean, some say this is, and this should have been, that opportune moment for Africa to demonstrate that indeed it is capable. Are we able to live to the task and to the shocks that may come and be as a result of this fallout from the Iranian tension?
Okay, I still think that it is possible. However, we have to analyze the challenges and put them in the right context. Today, we are more than 5 years into the start of trade under the AFCFTA. And if we are honest to ourselves, we have to admit that there have been clear success stories, and at the same time, there have been persistent challenges. Because obviously there has been some movement and some accomplishments with regards to the rules of origins, with regard to the tariff schedules, with regard to the framework of the AFCFTA. But some of the challenges involve the inability to move the intra-regional trade beyond the 18% for official trade, at least. And this means that we still have to analyze, we have to sit down with the 49 countries who have ratified, and they have to start the internal process of analyzing the performance of these countries under the AFCFTA, and to see what went well, what went wrong, and what is the way forward. The way forward, basically, for the AFCFTA is to admit that, in fact, there has been very little trade under the AFCFTA. The volumes are just too little, and there are reasons for that. So we have to analyze this on a country level, and then we have to decide on a country level what takes in order to take more advantage of the AFCFTA. Not because it's the right thing to do in itself, but because the longer-term objective necessitates that we work on our sustainability and our resilience, not as a country, as a region, and as a continent. So all of these are long-term objectives that have real economic benefits, because eventually the benefits of the AFCFTA will not only be felt at a country level, they will be felt at economic operator level and at citizens level. As a business or as a trader, you will manage to sell and buy at a much more competitive rate. As a producer, you will manage to produce at a more globally competitive rate. And as a citizen, you will benefit from lower prices and a wider choice and area of products and services under the AFCFTA. So the longer term objectives of the AFCFTA are very clear. It is the strategic direction and the importance of sitting down to analyze what have gone right and what have gone wrong over the past 5 years, what needs to be done over the next few years, and then to do it.
And I want to find out from you, probably this should be the last, your expectation of African governments and what they should be doing at this time in the face of this energy crisis. How can we harness that intra-African power to solve this crisis that the continent is facing?
So I know that at a regional level, I have been involved in some of the conversations at ECOWAS level about the importance of resilience and food security on a regional level. In fact, just next week, we will be in Abidjan to participate in the OECD Regional Food Trade Forum. And one of the discussions would be about how to work on creating the sustainable and resilient regional food value chains, and what is the future of trade facilitation in ECOWAS. So all of these disruptions are well taken into consideration. But there are several mechanisms that are not just at a country level, but also at a regional level. And so the various stakeholders are aware of the issues, but then we need the leaders to push on the regional integration agenda, despite the, the challenges that are perceived with this deteriorating security situation in some countries.
So you mean to say that this is also contingent on issues of visa?
Freedom of movement is definitely important because Africans move around, and where they move, they trade. So the freedom of movement of goods and people and finance and capital and information is the way forward for Africa as a continent. There are challenges, obviously, but there are no challenges that cannot be solved. And in various regions, in various areas of these challenges, you should identify what the problems are and to tackle them. If the problem with the movement of people is, for example, is leading to difficulties in the acquisition of visas, you have to identify ways to lower the risk and to enhance the profile of the populations in these particular countries in order to reduce the perceived risk of this freedom of movement across the region. Because eventually, the benefits of enhancing freedom of movement is to increase economic exchanges. And this would lead eventually to economic development. So it is all interconnected. The freedom of movement of people is connected with freedom of movement of goods and services. And then the freedom of movement of capital is important towards the acceleration of the economic development of the continent. And the freedom of movement is a very important concept that is embedded into not only the rules and the laws that were signed and agreed at heads of state level. It is also something that needs to be enforced if we were to move towards the Africa that we all need.
Now, 2 days of high-level talks in Dakar have put Africa's security crisis under a spotlight. But beyond the speeches and the strategy, the stories of ordinary people also linger. Adobe Asari has been taking a look at deliberations at that conference for us and comes through with this report.
2 days of intense discussion on Africa's peace, security, and stability have come to a close, with leaders and stakeholders making a renewed push for coordinated action against violent extremism across the continent. Over the past 2 days, the forum has brought together heads of state, security experts, and policymakers, all grappling with the growing threats of terrorism and instability in parts of Africa. But beyond the high-level engagements, the human cost remains a constant theme. Communities displaced, livelihoods disrupted, and families forced to live in fear. There have been strong calls for improved intelligence sharing, regional cooperation, and a more sustainable African-led solutions. Here's President of Senegal, Bassirou Diomaye Faye.
Terrorism has become a major threat on our state's infrastructure. Today, we ask ourselves, what can Africa do to stop this once and for all?
A key highlight has been the emphasis on women and children, now not seen just as vulnerable groups, but as critical players in building lasting peace. Chairman of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, Julius Bayo, made this call.
African women have been peace builders long before any institution recognized them as such. From post-conflict reconciliation.
Okay, Adobe Asari is back on Zoom with us. That instructive message from Julius Madabio, the chair of the Authority of Heads of States for ECOWAS, speaking there. What more have leaders been saying at this conference?
Well, today happened to be the wrap of the entire forum. There was a series of workshops which we pressed men were not given the access to the place. However, we did gather some key information that were shared there. At least we can tell two things. One of it is the use of artificial intelligence to, gather intelligence or prepare to be able to combat terrorists and probably anticipate extremisms and stop them before they even happen. Or even if it has started happening, they can use artificial intelligence to, curb the situation. However, it's unclear to us exactly what strategy they are going to use in using this AI. But we do know for sure that they have proposed the use of AI to be ahead of the people who cause these violence in parts of Africa. Now, the second thing is to imbibe in children, right from when they begin to understand simple things, the importance of peace, the effects of violence, and why it is necessary to keep an integrated Africa and strive for sovereignty. So we do know that all these things already happen in certain parts of the world. I know you and I studied social studies. We were taught, conflict resolution, conflict management, and all that. They are going to make that a very key thing. Although it's already happening, they want it to be more effective. So they're going to start teaching children. I'm unsure at what age, but with the information we have, they did mention that right from when children begin to understand things, they are going to, in the adage you and I know, catch them young, it shall be for years forever. They're going to catch them young, teach them, continue to keep in their minds, put in their minds the importance of peace. And then it can go a long way to, maintaining peace and security in Africa.
Let's talk about the security situation now. What more have we heard from ECOWAS on the security situation in the region?
Well, like I said, because some of these high-level meetings were held behind closed doors, I believe they think if they share with us details of the strategy, the strategy may land in the ears of the wrong people. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. So it's not that the strategies they have is not readily available to us. They have mentioned key things, like I mentioned, the use of AI, the fact that we'll have an integrated Africa where the states of the forces will be collaborating to share intelligence, all of that. But the deeper things is not shared with us yet.
Okay, great. And now the way forward, going into the future, what do you sense patrons now are looking forward to?
Well, I think patrons are looking forward to this moving from just dialogue to concrete, tangible actions. They want to see things happen. And because this dialogue has been happening for 10 years and it's the same, we're finding solutions. The few people I spoke to in the report did mention that, yes, it is indeed good that new strategies have come on board, but the real test will be when the people see change actually happen, when they begin to feel peace and security again in their various countries.
Okay, Adobe Asari there for us in Dakar, where the International Forum has concluded with a wide range of issues there on the table: security, social issues, and the authorities of heads of states also wading in on the crisis across the West Africa region. We'll be monitoring all of that closely, plus what's happening in Nigeria for you, and bring you updates on Connect Africa. But that's all we have for you in this package of Connect Africa and Blessed Sogah. Until then, log on to myjoyonline.com. We have so many stories there for you to get updates on. It's a wrap from us. We'll see you again. Bye for now.
I was born at Jachi. Lived all my life under military dictatorship. Knew about the curfews, whereby 6 p.m. you have to sleep, whether you like it or not. Those were the turbulent years in Ghana. I remember somebody asking Agyeman-Rawlings that, when are you handing over? And he famously said, hand over to whom? When I passed the common entrance, they gave me a prospectus. Never seen a prospectus before, but I was the first in the family to go to secondary school. I had to pay 40 cedis as a deposit, but it was difficult for my father to secure 40 cedis. I used to sell kerosene. I remember a familiar one, a woman close to my house who bought a kerosene, which I still don't think she paid, because when I go there, so come the next time, when you go there on Friday evening, they say, oh, it's Sabbath. So when it's Sabbath, they don't touch money.
Hi there. I hope you were able to make your nominations for this year's Impact Makers 2026. Yes, guess what? The judges are set. Just in case you are guessing whether you are making it or not, relax. Let's hear what our judges will be telling us or have been doing in this session of selection.
This session was good. And I just want to thank you people for giving us the opportunity to help in evaluating these candidates for these awards. Because you attest with me that we are in an era where most people are being self-centered. My colleague Tanko would tell you that people are self-centered. They are just thinking about their needs. But you can see that most of the candidates that we ranked or evaluated today are people who are not just concerned about their friends or family, but then they are supporting communities and changing life and transforming life. The impact has been so big
I'll also trace back to maybe a year or two ago when, the Impact Makers Awards started running. Despite the fact that we live in a country where we complain about our situation and how we don't have money and how we're all struggling to get along, it's heartwarming to actually read these stories, to learn that no matter what people are going through, there are good people still amongst us. And it's even more heartwarming when you also realize that there are people who have disabilities now that we have brought this new segment and are actually using their disabilities to turn things around to better themselves and people who are also, in the same situation that they are in.
The process has been very rigorous, very transparent, but I'm also struck by the diversity of initiatives that we've seen, so they aren't concentrated on one area, both geographically and thematically. And for me, it gives a lot of hope for this country that we have citizens stepping up and contributing whatever they can contribute to make this a better place. But I think it's awesome.
Evaluation of what we have gone through and what we've seen, the participants present. All these persons who are ranked here have made some significant impact on the Ghanaian society as much as possible. And so we believe, or I believe, that they deserve this.
The 2026 JoyNews Impact Makers Awards is brought to you by CEO Summit, Labadi Beach Hotel, Ayuda, Ghana's #1 services app, Abacon Services Bebre, New Crystal Hospital, Growing in Good Health, Silas Enterprise, where quality meets affordability, Water Aid Ghana, change starts with water, Ghana Chamber of Mines.
The city had one of its most dramatic years in recent memory. It opened 2025 at 14 cities, 70 pesos to the dollar. By February, it had weakened slightly to 15 cities, 50 pesos. It stayed there until April, one of the longest periods of stability in more than a decade. Then came the surprise. Between April and May, the city shot up. It strengthened from 15 cities, 50 pesos to 10 cities, 30 pesos in just 5 weeks. From May through July and into early August, it held steady. Between 10 cities, 30 pesos,